And that is how we start off a nice event with roots, rock, and reggae. Good afternoon and welcome to Responsibility Now, alcohol and mental health, making sense of the relationship. This is our third town hall in our knowledge sharing series, which started in 2019, and the first for 2023 on how to reduce alcohol misuse. Now, the overall objective is to stimulate public dialogue, stakeholder engagement, and action around critical issues for sustainability, such as responsible alcohol consumption. For those of you who do not know me, I'm your moderator, Dr. Terry Carell-Reid, and let me start off by thanking you so very much for taking the time out of your days to join us for such an important conversation, especially considering it's in the middle of the day. A special welcome to our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Kevin Goldburn, Director for Mental Health and Substance Abuse, Ministry of Health and Wellness. To our esteemed panelists, we are looking forward to your critical insights later on. Allow me to also acknowledge our hosting partners, Red Stripe, part of the Heineken Company, represented by Head of Corporate Affairs, Ms. Diane Ashton-Smith. The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, or the PSOJ, led by President Metri Siago, and the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking, led by Virginia Guidi. To other contributors, and I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay. Thank you so very much for being here. And all of our specially invited guests and friends of the media all. We are coming to you live from the Spanish Town Road headquarters of the world's coolest beer company, home of the iconic lager Red Stripe. But there are not just people in the room. We understand that we are joined by people online. They're joining us via Red Stripe Corporate's social media pages, YouTube, Facebook. Thank you so very much for being here. So we're happy to have you. Happy to have you be a part of the conversation, and we want you to continue the conversation long after this particular event takes place. Please go ahead and use the hashtag Red Stripe Responsibility Now. You can use the hashtag Champions for Moderation, hashtag Reduce Alcohol Misuse, and hashtag Red Stripe Knowledge Sharing. We want to hear from you, and there are also prizes for that participation, so go ahead and let us hear from you. So what is the goal today? If we look at the theme, the goal today is to continue to fight against alcohol misuse and to promote and advocate for mental health and wellness. And we would know that the month of May would have been the month that we would have observed mental health awareness. So when we talk about misuse, we don't want you to hear the term and not understand it. We mean consuming alcohol in a manner that is not responsible or sustainable. For example, overconsumption, drinking and driving, or underage drinking. So as part of the Heineken Company, Red Stripe has been a champion for responsible consumption, using multiple platforms and channels to land this message: drink and live responsibly. At Red Stripe, responsible consumption is not a nice to do, it is a must-do in keeping with Heineken's global sustainability agenda. I'm sure Ms. Ashton-Smith will share more on Heineken's global Brew a Better World, Raise the Bar 2030 ambitions and what that means for Red Stripe as they hashtag champion moderation. So today, we're zeroing in on the relationship between alcohol and mental health. How can stakeholders effectively drive responsible consumption against various mental health challenges that plague our society? And how can we support, as individuals, the reduction of people leaning to alcohol as a coping mechanism? These are some of the questions we will answer later on. So for the next hour and a half, we'll hear from presenters who will explore that question from different and unique perspectives. But first, let's begin with an official welcome and opening remarks from our host. And when you see her and you see what she's wearing, and you look at me and you see what I am wearing, you will simply know that great minds think alike, especially when it comes to the brand. Please show some appreciation for Red Stripe's Head of Corporate Affairs, Diane Ashton-Smith.
Thank you so much, Dr. Terry Carell. Yes, and she preempted me because I was going to tell you that we did not plan it, and we're not going to end that quote, which does say, great minds think alike, but we will not complete the quote. You will also look to my right that these gentlemen are also color-coded in gray. We did not plan it, but again, great minds think alike. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I learned very well from our guru of branding and personal branding. Oftentimes I don't wear this much red, but I have seen Terry represent our brand in such a powerful way. I said to myself, I had to buy myself a red suit, not recognizing that she would have come in her full red as well. But not to worry, while she wears it much better than I do, I think I'm a good second place. You agree? Well, thank you so much. But ladies and gentlemen, I must say a very warm welcome to you. Welcome to Red Stripe, which is, of course, the coolest beer company in the world. We're happy to have you at this very special town hall organized by us. Well, today we gather here to explore a topic of utmost importance, one that lies at the heart of our evergreen agenda, just as you would have heard from Terry, and our commitment to responsible consumption. We are here to discuss the relationship between alcohol and mental health and why understanding and addressing this connection is vital for us all. Today's town hall is a testament to our dedication to addressing the harmful use of alcohol and to creating awareness and making sure that we have a network of support. So by bringing together experts, stakeholders, and of course our community, we aim to leverage collective wisdom and expertise to drive positive change. At Red Stripe, we recognize that being social and maintaining relationships is vital to mental health. And for some people, social venues like bars and restaurants and pubs play a part in that. But this benefit is only there when people are consuming moderately. As a responsible company, we do not advocate that consuming alcohol improves mental health or social life. In fact, it is never the right thing to do. We believe that, yes, alcohol is something that does not make you feel better. And note, I'm emphasizing the words not. However, before we delve further into our discussion on the relationship between alcohol and mental health, let's take a moment to acknowledge the importance of data and the work that Red Stripe has already undertaken to address this issue. Now, the World Health Organization has been a pivotal source of information and guidance on mental health and alcohol-related matters. Now, according to the WHO, harmful use of alcohol contributes to more than 200 different types of diseases and injuries, including mental disorders. And this includes conditions such as depression, anxiety, alcohol use disorders, which can have profound effects on individuals, families, and communities. However, it's not enough to solely rely on statistics and data. For us, taking action is key. We like to say in Jamaica, action, not a bag of mouth, right? And so at Red Stripe, we understand the gravity of these challenges, and we've taken proactive steps to address them. Through our occupational health department and our wellness program, we have prioritized well-being for our employees, recognizing that mental health plays a vital role in their overall wellness. So you're sitting in a bar that is for employees. Behind there, we have a gym. Over on your right, you will notice we have a beautiful landscaped, what would you call it? A running track, a football court. There's also a basketball court, because we recognize the importance of balance in our everyday life. So it can't be work, 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 drink, 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 drink. It has to be a balance. So we ensure that we provide these things for employees. We also provide support, resources, and a network of professionals to ensure that our employees have access to the help they need. In addition, our employee support network serves as a vital platform, offering a safe space for our employees to discuss mental health concerns, seek guidance, and find a supportive community. And so by fostering open dialogue and breaking down barriers, we aim to create an environment that encourages employees to prioritize their mental well-being. But our commitment does not stop there. Red Stripe has been at the forefront of promoting responsible alcohol consumption through various campaigns, or Drink and Live Responsibly initiative, which is designed to educate consumers about the potential risks associated with the misuse of alcohol and encourage moderation and responsible decision making. We also take pride in our Get Home Responsibly campaign, which aims to raise awareness about the importance of planning how you're going to get home, planning safe transportation options after consuming alcohol. So we partner with rideshare services, we also partner with public transportation, and we promote the designated driver programs as we strive to ensure that our consumers have the means to take responsible choices. Moreover, we recognize that responsible consumption starts with education and awareness from an early age. That's why Red Stripe launched the Parents Movement campaign, and through this campaign, we recognize the role that parents play in shaping the attitudes and behaviors of their children. So we provide them with the resources and the support to help these parents have open and honest conversations about alcohol and mental health, ensuring that future generations grow up with a strong understanding of responsible consumption. Red Stripe also has always been more than just a beverage brand. We have stood as a symbol of innovation. We've stood as a symbol of progress. We have certainly been very clear about our commitment to our community. And our Evergreen Agenda, which is our strategic imperatives, is a testament to our dedication to sustainability, responsibility, and leaving a legacy, a positive impact on society. And today, we extend that commitment to mental health awareness. We really believe, and we strongly believe, that addressing this complex relationship between alcohol and mental health certainly requires a whole-of-society approach. It cannot be just the producers. We understand, as a producer, the importance of collaboration and engagement with a wide cross-section of stakeholders, and we actively seek to partner with community organizations, with mental health professionals, with government agencies, and other industry leaders to make sure we have sustainable solutions to address the challenges and find these solutions together. So by bringing together these diverse perspectives and expertise, we certainly can create a collective impact that we believe transcends boundaries and promotes a culture of responsible consumption and mental well-being. Red Stripe is certainly committed to fostering these partnerships and driving positive change at both the individual and societal levels. In recent years, we know conversations around mental health, particularly during COVID and post-COVID, that this is hugely important, and we need to have these conversations. And rightly so. Mental health affects every aspect of our lives, from our personal well-being to our productivity in the workplace. It touches the lives of our families, it touches the lives of our friends and our colleagues. Yet, despite its prevalence, the relationship between alcohol and mental health is often overlooked or even misunderstood. So, we all know alcohol is a part of many social gatherings. Certainly here in Jamaica, we have it at the birth of our children, we have it when they graduate, we have it at funerals, we have it at social events. It's all part of our social identity. And so we want to understand, how does this impact well-being? These are the questions we aim to explore today. And we're not here to stigmatize alcohol or demonize alcohol consumption. We gather here with a genuine desire to foster understanding, awareness, and responsible choices. Red Stripe is, and we are very proud to say that we are a pioneer in responsible consumption. We recognize the need to provide our consumers with the tools and the knowledge to make informed decisions about their mental and physical well-being, and we take it very seriously. So throughout this town hall, we'll hear from experts in the field of mental health and addiction who will shed light on the complex relationship between alcohol and mental health, and they'll help us understand the potential risks, the impact of alcohol on our emotional well-being, and how we can support those in need. It's crucial for us to recognize, however, that our commitment to responsible consumption goes beyond mere words. Action, not a bag of mouth, right? We're here because we genuinely care about the well-being of our consumers and our communities. We want to be a responsible organization that offers support and guidance to those who may be struggling with mental health issues or facing challenges related to alcohol consumption. And by hosting this town hall, we hope to encourage open dialogue, break down stigmas, and foster a supportive environment within our community. It is an opportunity for us to learn from one another, to ask difficult questions, and to collectively work towards solutions that prioritize mental health alongside responsible alcohol consumption. So in conclusion, the World Health Organization's data highlights the impact of alcohol on mental health, and we at Red Stripe, we have taken proactive steps to address this issue through initiatives such as the ones I mentioned, or occupational health initiatives, or Drink and Live Responsibly programs, Get Home Responsibly, and our Parents Movement. But we want to recognize that a comprehensive and lasting solution requires the involvement of diverse stakeholders from across society. And together, we know we can make a meaningful difference and create a future where responsible consumption and mental well-being go hand in hand. So as we embark on this journey together, I urge each and every one of you to approach this town hall with an open mind, empathy, and a willingness to listen. We're all here because we believe in the power of education, and we understand that this is hugely important. Let's therefore embrace this opportunity to make a positive impact on the lives of our consumers and our community. And I really, really and truly want to thank you for joining us today. Together, we can pave the way towards a future where responsible consumption and mental well-being thrive hand in hand. So welcome to the coolest company in the world.
Thank you so very much, Dan. Certainly some reminders. Number one, work-life balance is absolutely necessary, and I just want to acknowledge Red Stripe for leading by example. She also reminded us that it is everyone's responsibility. It's not just a private sector or public sector. It's not just communities or that community or the church over there or the school over there, but each of us as individuals have a responsibility towards this collective effort. She also reminded us that, yeah, it's a part of our DNA when we think about a line, when we think about escaping, celebration, decompressing, coping, numbing the pain. Many of us use alcohol for many different reasons. And we just want to remind you that this town hall is not here to judge. It is not to blame. We're reminding you that even in your questions and the conversations that are going to happen here, in the room, online, outside of this town hall, please be open, be patient, be kind, be compassionate, and be empathetic. So with that said, we just want to remind you that this is a societal, social, cultural, and generational issue that needs everybody's hand on deck. We couldn't do this without the presence and the support of our partners. The Private Sector Organization of Jamaica has once again teamed up with Red Stripe, there we go, hooray, to lend support to continuing effort to promote moderation. Please help me welcome to the stage PSOJ President Metri Siaga.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not fancy like Diane with our screen in front of her. Master of Ceremonies, the wonderful Terry Carell Reid. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and members of the media, good afternoon. Let me start by saying thank you to our valued member Red Stripe for yet another staging of the Responsibility Now Townhall series. The PSOJ is proud to stand alongside you in your continued efforts to demonstrate the transformative power of the private sector in addressing societal issues. Today, we are embarking on a mission to highlight a critical topic, alcohol and mental health, making sense of the relationship. In today's fast-paced world, where stress and anxiety have become all too common, we must address the impact of alcohol on our mental well-being. Mental health is an essential component of our overall health, and as responsible citizens, we must recognize the need to have an open and honest discussion about this pressing issue. Alcohol and mental health have a complex relationship that deserves our attention. While it is true that alcohol can temporarily relieve stress or emotional turmoil, it is essential to recognize the potential dangers beneath the surface. Excessive alcohol consumption can exacerbate existing mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, and leads to new challenges. Today, we gather to acknowledge the significance of this relationship and explore the solutions and interventions available to us. By bringing together experts, policymakers, and individuals with lived experiences, this town hall provides a platform for dialogue, knowledge sharing, and collective action. Together, we can dismantle the stigma surrounding mental health, promote responsible drinking habits, and ensure the availability of support systems for those who need it most. Furthermore, we must acknowledge that there is a strong link between the well-being of our people, the success of our businesses, and the overall productivity and the costs involved. As organizations, we are responsible for going beyond profit-making and promoting initiatives that address all aspects of mental health. As the president of the PSOJ, I extend my sincerest gratitude to Red Stripe for their unwavering support in advancing this critical cause. Our collaboration underscores the power of partnership and collective responsibility. Through these joint efforts, we, as leaders in the private sector, can drive the national discourse on matters that impact the well-being and the progress of our nation. I urge all of you to participate actively, listen attentively, and share your insights generously. Together, we can make a tangible impact, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so very much. He's like short, sweet. He's going to get to the point. He's going to deliver. You're going to eat up all of these things. 1, 2, 3, go. But in his conversation, in his delivery, he spoke about the complex relationship that exists. And so while we speak about alcohol and the complex relationship and the intersections, we also have to understand that Rome was not built in one day. Therefore, we understand that this is going to have layered approaches. We understand it's going to have multiple stakeholders. We understand that it is not a one-size-fits-all, and more importantly, this is going to be ongoing. Okay? And I think once we understand that, then everything starts to make even more sense. And something that he says was beyond profit. So we understand it's more about the people, the impact, the transformation, and the partnership. So thank you again, Mr. Siago. So ladies and gentlemen, a partnership between the PSOJ and Red Stripe really speaks to the importance of the movement and the collaborative effort. Responsible consumption isn't just a business thing, it is a national imperative. Our keynote speaker is Dr. Kevin Goldberg, Director of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, Ministry of Health and Wellness. I cannot wait to hear all the insights, the nuggets, and the gems that he will be providing. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Kevin Goldberg.
So I'd like to acknowledge our moderator, the vivacious Dr. Terry Carroll Reed, Ms. Dan Ashton-Simmet, Red Stripe, the Head of Corporate Affairs at Red Stripe, Mr. Mitri Siaga, President of the POCLJ, you, the audience in this physical space and those in virtual space, members of the media, a pleasant good afternoon. Thanks, Dr. Terry Carroll, for your kind words of introduction, and thanks for the organizers of this town hall meeting for the invitation to be the guest speaker at this year's third town hall meeting under the banner of Responsibility Now. Now, when I heard Ms. Ashton Smith and Dimitri Sierra spoke, I almost said to myself, I didn't need to speak again. However, I'm also pleased to hear the mention about mental health as being a very important part of their workforce. Because without good mental health, there's no good health. We all know that? No good health without good mental health. So commendation is due to Red Stripe for taking this initiative to demonstrate corporate responsibility for the products it produces by encouraging persons to drink responsibly, thus reducing the risk of harm to person, property, and life. I'm also glad to see the willingness of others to partner with Red Stripe, which include POCLJ. So in my presentation today, I will outline the disease burden of alcohol, the science behind alcohol and mental health, the implication of this link, and national alcohol policy. Now, the harmful effect of alcohol is one of the 4 main risk factors for non-communicable diseases, such as heart disease, cancer, and mental disorder, and can lead to the risk of persons having dying or suffer significant illness due to this alcohol consumption. As I mentioned before, it's linked to numerous negative health and social outcomes, including more than 200 disease and injury conditions. So what is the global context? Alcohol use was ranked as the 7th leading risk factor for premature death and disability in 2016. Also in this year, 2.18 million deaths were attributed to alcohol use. It's also linked to mental health problems, including depression, anxiety disorders, obesity, and unintentional injury. It's also linked to cancer, stroke, cirrhosis of the liver. What about our local context? Our recent national survey done in 2016 has shown that 15% of the Jamaican population were aged between 12 years and 65 years was at medium to high risk for alcohol dependence or alcohol addiction. In that same survey, it was found that 7 out of 10 persons reported that they have consumed alcohol at some time in their life, and 4 out of 10 are current users. Among the students, 13, 15 years old, over 80% reported drinking alcohol before the age of 14 years. In another survey, the Global School Health Survey in 2017, the harmful alcohol use was shown to be very high among males when compared to females. And what was noted, alarmingly, that easy access and availability of alcohol continues to occur, where 50%, half amount of youths, say that it was easy for them to access alcohol. So you see, we will have a problem on our hands. So the science behind alcohol and mental health. Now, as mentioned before, alcohol use on weekend after a hard day's work with friends may not be surprised among persons in the audience, because it becomes part of our social event. Just feel like given that Jamaicans, when they meet to socialize, they eat and drink alcohol, and it's more the norm than exception. However, can this drinking in a fun social event be associated with negative consequences? Now, the 2 previous Red Stripe Town Hall meetings emphasized the risk to safe driving that alcohol consumption may cause if driving is done under the influence of alcohol, which may have been consumed at the social event. Today, we'll examine the relationship between alcohol use and mental health. For us to make sense of this relationship, a brief look on how the alcohol affects the brain will help us to make sense of the relationship between alcohol and mental health. You must also remember that mental disorders is due to changes in the brain, just as though diabetes is due to a change in the pancreas, an organ of the body. So mental disorder is a brain disease. So what is alcohol? So alcohol is an example of what we call a psychoactive substance, like cigarettes and marijuana, which affects the body's nervous system, the brain and spinal cord. By doing this, it affects how we feel, it affects how we think, how we behave, and how we perceive our environment. So, but how does alcohol cause these changes in the brain function? It does this by affecting chemicals in the brain which may either increase or decrease activity of the brain. So for example, alcohol causes the increase of a chemical called GABA. This chemical slows down the brain. Thus when it is increased, it causes a person to become more carefree, talkative, confident, and friendly. And that's how it becomes a social lubricant. It can also cause other chemicals like glutamate to decrease. Glutamate increases activity of the brain. So when it decreases, it causes a decrease in the heart rate, in the breathing, and cause one to feel sleepy, and thus it may calm one down. So alcohol can also further slow one brain down, so it makes it harder to think, make it difficult to make judgment, to concentrate, and affects one's ability to walk. Hence the what the police will ask a person to do after a person consumed too much alcohol while driving. It also affects one's speech, called slurred speech, and ability to operate machinery, including a motor car. There's also a reward circuit of the brain that encourages us to repeat natural behaviors. Natural behaviors like eating and sexual behavior. And this is done by increasing dopamine whenever we engage in these activities. It makes us feel good. Alcohol also makes you feel good because it also increases dopamine in this circuit. However, this increase is much greater than what we see by eating and sexual behavior. A person may initially take alcohol out of curiosity, which may lead to use in social events and with time, regular use. Over time, if alcohol is taken more frequently and excessively, the brain adapts to the alcohol, and thus the person develops tolerance and dependence or addiction to alcohol. As a result, the person requires excessive amounts of alcohol to give that dopamine release to feel good. This state of dependence or addiction to alcohol is characterized by being a brain disease in which there's a compulsive, long-standing, and relapsing use of alcohol, even though one faces harmful effects. Compulsive, difficult to resist the urge to drink. Long-standing, chronic, remember months, years, and relapsing, mean that sometimes a person may stop drinking for a day or two, but go back to drinking after a day or two has lapsed. Now, alcohol use may be related to an attempt to self-medicate, to deal with symptoms of anxiety and depression, because of its calming effects and its feel-good effect that I mentioned earlier. However, these effects are short-lived, so it could lead to increased frequency of using alcohol in larger quantities, and this only worsens the untreated anxiety and depressive disorder. Thus, instead of having one problem to address of anxiety or depression, a person may end up with two problems: anxiety or depressive disorder and an alcohol use disorder. And that's what we term as dual diagnosis, where a person has two distinct conditions, and when that happens, treatment is so much more difficult. Also, persons having used alcohol over time and having problems with alcohol, having issues with their family discord, job loss, accidents, this may also result in the person becoming very anxious and depressed when they realize they're having this compulsive behavior, they can't control it, and it's causing a lot of bad effects. They become anxious and depressed at the end of the day. So alcohol use disorder and mental health disorder in the same person can result in us asking a question: which came first, the chicken or the egg? But regardless of the answer, individual diagnosis, at the end of the day, both disorders must be treated adequately for the best outcome. Now, also during intoxications or during a period of withdrawal from alcohol use, heavy alcohol use that is, there are likely to be mental signs and symptoms related to the chemicals mentioned above suddenly increasing or suddenly decreasing. Now, it's important then for us to emphasize responsible drinking. And it's fundamental to avoid experiencing mental symptoms due to alcohol use, which can occur when there's binge drinking. And binge drinking is where you drink 5 or more drinks within 2 hours for men, or 4 more drinks within 2 hours for female. A drink is like one 5-ounce Red Stripe beer. That's considered to be one drink. Okay? Also, if you drink more than 14 drinks in a week for men, or more than 7 drinks per week for women, you may have alcohol-related problems. And one question you can ask other persons is what we call cage questionnaire. When you ask a person, are you able to cut down on your drinking? Do you get easily annoyed when a person speaks to you about their drinking? Do you feel guilty about your drinking? And in the morning, do you have to have a drink in the morning for you to wake up? Like an eye-opener. And if a question in any of those is yes, then it's possible you may have an alcohol-related problem which needs further exploration. So note, though, that above consumption of alcohol I mentioned, for some persons, even consuming less than that will cause problems. Maybe not a person who they just drink a glass of wine and they are tipsy already. So you need to know your limits as well. So there are resources available for alcohol and mental health support. I'll mention a few here. There's the National Council on Drug Abuse. We provide substance use counseling, and it can be reached at 876-564-HELP or 564-4357. Then there's Rise Life Management Services, which can be reached at 876-967-3777. Then there's the National Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Helpline, operated under the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and it can be reached by 888-639-5433. I'm sure most of you in the audience are aware of this number. Am I right or am I wrong? No response. But just remember, it's 888-NEW-LIFE. Now, from my ministry point of view, we need to do something to make sure that we realize this problem is a big problem. Hence, we have a national alcohol policy, which is to provide a framework for alcohol-related legislation, plans, and programs to prevent, treat, and mitigate the harmful effects of alcohol use. The other rationale behind developing this alcohol policy in Jamaica is to help Jamaica to attain some of the sustainable developmental goals, and thus reduce the risk and disease burden of harmful use of alcohol, as was described previously. One sustainable development goal is SDG 3.4, which said by 2030 to reduce by 1/3 premature mortality from non-communicable disease through prevention and treatment and promotion of mental health and well-being. And the other is SDG 3.5, which speaks about strengthening the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. And SDG 3.6, which speaks by 2020 to halve the number of global deaths and injuries from road traffic accidents. Now, what are the components of this policy? It includes physical availability of alcohol, drunk driving countermeasures, prohibition of sale to minors, controlling marketing and advertising, liquor law enforcement, controlling illegal alcohol, public education information, and the improvement of health system response. And what are the expected outcomes of this policy? These include a reduction in alcohol-related crashes, reducing morbidity and deaths due to alcohol-related conditions, reduce alcohol-related non-communicable diseases, so heart disease, cancers, mental disorders, to reduce alcohol-related gender-based violence, reduce access and availability to minors. Additionally, it is expected to improve regulation and enforcement of drinking laws, improve public awareness of harmful effects of alcohol, and improve a health system to address alcohol-related problems. Now, in March of this year, there was a commencement of a national drug prevalence study, which was announced and seeks to examine the prevalence of psychoactive substances across Jamaica, with a special emphasis on alcohol. Results of such study will inform the national alcohol policy and contribute to the basis for the development of prevention, treatment, and harm reduction programs. So in conclusion, alcohol causes significant disease burden, and there's a definite link between alcohol and mental health. And that is clearly seen in the title of my position, being the Director of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Both mental health disorders and alcohol dependence or addiction are brain diseases. They are brain diseases. Resources are available to assist persons with alcohol-related problems. And national alcohol policy seeks to provide a framework to develop legislation and programs to prevent, treat, and mitigate harmful effects of alcohol use. So just to remind you again, there is no good health without good mental health. And you can see in that board here, we need to stop the stigma, provide more support, listen, and aid person to recovery. I'm so pleased to hear what's happening in the private sector. It's very heartening, and I'm hoping to partner with them much more. So thank you for your attention, and please remind us that we should drink and live responsibly, and taking responsibility which begins now and not in the future.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Goldburn. When you consider the layers and how comprehensive the topic of alcohol and the use and misuse of it can be, for him to be able to even narrow it down within 10 to 15 minutes by itself, we really do appreciate the effort. I don't know if a lot of you were as taken aback when he read the statistic or the percentage of teenagers under the age of 14, 15 getting access. And not only getting access, but starting to drink from such an early age. And we know if you start at an early age, then it becomes habit forming. I thought that number really stood out for me. What I will also say is I got a lot of reaction from the audience when he spoke about if you have more than 7 drinks. Was that during the week? For females. And how many for the males? And 14. And I see somebody eye tear open like, but we got through that in 2 days. Easy, easy. You know, and that is the reason why we're having this conversation, because what we have normalized can actually be doing damage. And I cannot wait to get into the conversation with our panel discussion. So we're going to move right into that. But first, a quick reminder from the Drink and Live Responsibly campaign. Watch this.
As you go about your everyday life, take good care of yourself. Remember to balance things. Celebrate with your favorite beverages. And enjoy a healthy, balanced meal as well. So eat right and drink responsibly. They go great together. Cheers to the best in life. Must be 18 years or older. Drink and live responsibly.
Welcome to season 2 of Bear Love. I'm your resident Bear Bay, Ashley M. And on last season, we would have explored the history of bear, how bear was made, the quality of bear, and which foods pair best with which bears.
And in season 2, we're having conversations over beer.
Okay.
So that we can share more of the word about responsible consumption with more people.
Once you have the information from somebody you trust in your village, whether it be a grandfather, auntie, a cousin, an older cousin, you trust that information, and it's better to get that information from somebody inside your circle than out the road.
You want to make sure that you are conscious of how you consume alcohol, because we really want people to drink, but we want them to do it responsibly.
Very superstitious, writings on the wall. When you believe in it, but you don't understand that superstition ain't the way. Very superstitious, writings on the wall. When you believe in it, but you don't understand that superstition ain't the way.
By the way, I love that ad. If you're just joining us, thank you so very much for tuning in. And if you have been with us since the beginning, thank you for sticking and staying. I am Terry Carell Reed, the moderator for this town hall meeting entitled Responsibility Now. Alcohol and mental health, making sense of the relationship. So we're coming to you live from Red Stripe in Kingston, Jamaica, and we welcome all of our viewers, those of you who are tuning in virtually, as well as those of you who are in the space right now with us. Thank you for logging in on Red Stripe corporate pages. And we want you to follow along with the conversation using the hashtag Red Stripe Responsibility Now, hashtag Champions for Moderation, hashtag Reduce Alcohol Misuse, or the hashtag Red Stripe Knowledge Sharing. There will be giveaways, Heineken 00, drink and live responsibly, yoga mats. That just sounds really nice. And beach towels, so you can definitely win those if you stick around and, of course, you participate. We already have questions coming in, but before we get to the question and answer segment, we have some fantastic panelists who work within different spaces, who come into contact with persons who possibly use and misuse alcohol. And so this is going to be a very open, very candid, very transparent conversations. And again, as the conversations happen, go ahead and drop your comments, those of you in the room, as well as those of you tuning in virtually. So I'm going to say hello and welcome to Virginia Geedy, Managing Director, U.S. Office, SVP Multilateral and Policy Analysis, MPA, International Alliance for Responsible Drinking, IARD. Thank you so very much for the partnership. Thank you for being here. Sarah Templeton, Counselor and Substance Abuse Specialist. All right. Patrice White, who needs no introduction if you are into health, fitness, transformative health and wellness coach. Thank you so very much, Patrice. And I want to also add, thank you for being so candid and open about your mental health journey, which we will also speak about, which makes you a great advocate as well. Carla Moore, mental health advocate, also a fellow Campionite. Red is strong. Welcome to the panel. I almost never get to meet fellow Campionites, so I just want to say hi and welcome. And Jason Russell, CEO, Pier 1 Montego Bay, thank you for making the drive in. Ladies and the liquor gentlemen, welcome to the conversation. How we're going to start this off is I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. You can reintroduce yourselves, kind of let our audience members understand what your role is and why that role is important, especially as it applies to this conversation. And Jason, you know what? Normally they say the women before the men, but all things considered, let me start with you.
No problem. Jason Russell, Pier 1. Been running Pier 1 now for 20 years. Head cook, buckle washer with a marvelous team that surrounds us down there. We are where the tire hits the road in this conversation. It's easy to say alcohol has its challenges in society and it does create bad situations. But a bar is where we actually consume the alcohol. A bar is where we come to interact with the alcohol, and it is the point of sale. So me being here, I guess, is to shed some light on what does it mean, for argument's sake, to cut the use of alcohol. How does it affect business and commerce? And what does it mean for a bar owner to ride the wave of cutting alcohol use and drinking responsibly? And how can we get involved in that message also? Because we are the tip of the spear in terms of underage drinking and people drinking responsibly. So I hope to have a good discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Patrice, your role and what kind of responsibility you think you have in this discussion between alcohol, misuse, use, and mental health.
All right. So, afternoon, everyone. Terry, it's Patrice J. White, so you owe me some burpees because you have left out the J. Yes, yes, J. White. All right, so guys, I take my name very serious. My name is also my brand, and as somebody who's very
absolutely, absolutely.
We have to make sure that people understand the brand.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. No, absolutely. Make sure I'm writing the J right.
So, I am a health and wellness entrepreneur, and I'm also a serious advocate when it comes to mental health. I also struggle with my own illness. I suffer from clinical depression. I've tried to commit suicide several times between 2017 to present. So when I got the call 2 weeks ago, I think, to be a part of this forum, I actually switched around some engagements to ensure that I'm here, because when someone commits suicide, the first thing we always speak about is why they never ask for help. You understand me? Then we change the conversation to, we forget about the victim, and then we start saying that the victim is selfish. Where persons need to be educated as to the pain someone goes through when they're going through depression, and the end solution for them to end that pain is committing suicide. And then when you have now your own mental struggles and you don't have the help that is there available, or the help that is supposed to be there that's available is now working against you, it doesn't solve the issue. So education is very critical to persons who are in the position to help persons who are dealing with their own struggles. Because remember, we need our help, but persons who don't know how to deal with the ones who need help, they also need to be educated in terms of how it is that they can help us. One of the ways that persons solve that issue is by going to my dear friend here. Because the truth of the matter is that we're not stigmatizing alcohol, guys. We're not. But, when we drink it, we feel good. And we get that temporary pleasure, that temporary release. And that's how we now end up abusing it. And when we abuse it, then, like for someone like me who suffers from clinical depression, if I abuse alcohol and I already have my own issue dealing with, then, as our dear friend said earlier, you have that double whammy effect in place. So, I'm looking forward to partaking in the conversation. Terry, my story. I'm very open about my story. When it comes to mental health, I'm also very, very happy and excited to know that we're not where we were years ago, where persons who are afraid of having conversations where their mental health spaces is because of the stigma that surrounds it. You still have stigma that surrounds it same way, but we're not where we were 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
So I'm happy for the space we're in now.
Thank you. And again, even before, just introducing and understanding how candid you have been about your entire journey. And I think, especially for persons like yourself, you are in the business of helping people to transform, and it's very fitness and wealth, and in terms of your health is wealth. And you're seen as so strong. At a lot of times, people separate their roles and what they do from their struggles. And so I thank you for being here. Virginia Ginny Giddy, tell us about your role, your responsibility, especially as it applies to this very important conversation.
Sure, Terry. Is that on?
Go again?
Is it working now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Feel free to call me Ginny.
Ginny.
Yes, yes. My name is important to me, too, and it's frequently confused with my last name, which is GD. So
Ginny is fine.
Ginny
Okay.
is just fine. Some people call me Dr. G, but it doesn't matter. I'm really honored and so happy to be here today, to be a part of this really important conversation. So I represent an organization known as the International Alliance for Responsible Drinking. We're a global organization. We are a not-for-profit organization dedicated to reducing the harmful use of alcohol. And we are supported by leading beer, wine, and spirits producers globally. And of course, Heineken here, and it's just pure coincidence, I'm wearing white and red. There must have been a memo that have come together to address this very serious and important issue. We are the sole conveners of the CEOs of those companies, so we try to get the leadership straight from the top to really embrace the approach that we're trying to take in terms of leadership and recognition of the need to address the harmful use of alcohol. And we recognize that the private sector really not only has this responsibility to consumers, but to our communities that we live in, and the families and the broader society at large. We're here to be part of this conversation, frankly, because we believe we have that role, we have that responsibility. We take it very seriously, and it starts with the young people, and it continues. It very clearly ties to mental health and the issues that we're talking about today. So it's really an honor and pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for being a partner and for reminding us that this is a collective and collaborative effort. And I think that is something that all of our panelists as well as speakers have said earlier. So I'm coming across to Sarah Templeton, counselor and substance abuse specialist. So you probably see it all. You deal with all different kinds and types of manifestations, symptoms, just people struggling, going through their troubles. But let us know from you your role and your responsibility.
Okay, so I work with Rise Life Management. I've worked across the Caribbean with predominantly youth, but at Rise we work with youth and adults. My background is clinical psychology, so I have the mental health, mental wellness piece, but my focus was substance abuse treatment. So I really do work on the front lines, and I see people both with mental health issues solo and then people with substance use issues. And one of the things that was addressed earlier in the conversation is the dual diagnosis. And what I find, particularly with people with substance use issues, is that it's the substance use is almost always it premeditates the mental health issue, right? So it's most people that I work with substance use issues choose the substance that helps whatever their mental health diagnosis is. So if we don't address the substance use foremost, then getting anything underneath that isn't going to happen.
Got you. Thank you. I can't wait to dive in. And by the way, we already have questions coming in, and so we'll definitely get to the questions very quickly. Carla, I'm coming to you. I know you in the space certainly as a mental health advocate. Similar to Patrice J. White, you are also very open about your bout, your relationship with depression, also a youth advocate as well as activist, as well as a gender specialist. So you deal with many layers, many intersections as an expert, as a professional, as a lecturer, but also as someone who knows firsthand how you deal with these things and possibly having to consider many different things to help cope. Talk to me about your role, your responsibility, especially with this conversation.
Yes, thanks. I'm really happy to be here. I love this panel that we've put together. Also glad to see somebody else from the West. Big up Red Stripe. This event has kept the toll road open because we surely had to drive. I am on this panel as somebody who has survived trauma, who lives with anxiety and depression, and at one point was at that point where I couldn't go to the bar because I couldn't afford 3 queues. And that's how much it took to get me where I needed to go because my tolerance was there because I was drinking every single night. And my own journey towards healing and recognizing that I do want a life that feels good. And there were certain things that I had to address to get to that point. My relationship with alcohol being one of them. I also think that people just deserve to live good lives. And that means we have to face up to the things that we're carrying, so that we can heal them, so that we can release them and come to something that's new and that's different. And I also think that people we need to release the shame that we carry about the things that have happened to us, about living with mental health conditions, about the fact that we're drinking a lot right now and we need to stop drinking so much, whatever it is. And that's one of the reasons that I come to spaces like this and I'm honest, because the shame is almost worse than what you're going through. That fear that if I open up, people will think, oh, you're the old drunkard. That is the word, the drunkard. You're the old drunkard. You really, me never know, but you come from a good family and nothing bad never really happened to you in a life, and all of the comparisons, and that by the time people think about that, they shut down again. And you cannot heal in that darkness. And so if there is any way that I can get even a toops of light into a room, if it's even for sure you send me it in the dark, and like, look, a sunshine reach me now, I'll do that because we deserve more.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We deserve more. I appreciate that. Thank you so very much. I'm going to ask one more question for the panel, and then I'm going to open up, considering we have questions coming in from YouTube as well as Facebook. Jason, you said it. You said a lot of the times the bar represents that relationship. It is home. It is escape. It is refuge. Sometimes it's the best friend. It's the wife. It's the partner. For many people going through, simply because of things that Patrice has said, the things that Carla has said in terms of people are afraid to open up to someone else, and sometimes the bartender. So sometimes the bar creates an environment where I feel welcomed and I don't feel judged. And sometimes our bartenders are our shrinks and our therapists who going to ask, so how are you doing? And people let go, they let loose. So I think from a bar owner, understanding that people come, they pour out, they offload, they download, and then having the bartenders have to juggle between serving a patron, but also knowing when to say, all right, I think you've had enough. I think we're going to cut it off there. What are the kind of practices or policies that you put in place, or even training for your bartenders or people who are coming into contact through employment of your establishment with patrons?
Everything you said was true. I mean, the stress that a bartender goes through on a daily basis, I mean, including myself, of having to absorb. It's almost like a masseuse. She have to rub out those nuts out of your life. The truth is, most people will not walk into a psychiatrist's office or go to a doctor for a mental health issue. A lot of people don't access the church the way they should, where they can sit with a pastor and maybe get a conversation. It is the bar. Once they get there, a lot of times they're confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know who to talk to. They're strangers sometimes. But they do find comfort in a bartender or in the owner. And they do reach out, and they have to buy a drink. I mean, obviously they're sitting at a bar, they're going to buy a drink. And that interaction will become habitual. They will find peace and comfort while having a drink at the bar, and you can't deny that. But what happens after? How do you follow that up? And it is that interaction, it is that follow-up that makes the difference. They become family, and family takes care of family. So that, oh, you're too drunk to drive, that becomes a thing. Oh, you're drinking too much, that becomes a thing. On a business level, we are trained to recognize when somebody has consumed too much alcohol. And we do call cabs, we do take keys from people. Nice. We do understand when somebody, of course, is underage. So our bartenders are trained to recognize most of those issues. But ultimately, I mean, from where I sit, it's more good than bad. I mean, we absorb a lot. We interact with a lot of people. And I think the follow-up to this conversation could be, how could we partner with the clinical world and say, okay, this person genuinely has a problem and is not getting over it and has now used alcohol to try and cope. Here's a number. And I've tried it a couple of times and it has not been successful. Just try calling a psychiatrist and say, hey, would you be interested in reaching out to this person? And the response that we've gotten so far is, no, this person has to come to me. And we're not in the business of handcuffing somebody and sending them to a psychiatrist. We do what we can. But even on a business level, it's not attractive to have a room full of, let's just use the word, drunks or people that are depressed or having a bad day. It sets a bad tone for the business. So you ultimately try to get people over it. You ultimately try to create a good atmosphere. And it does help. I mean, I can give you countless stories of people that came in going through bad breakups, going through those terrible situations, found comfort, found friends, found people that went through the same situation and got over it. And I don't know if there's a stat for that, but I can tell you it's not that uncommon.
And that's good to hear, because we also want to balance the conversations, right? Because it's not all doom and gloom. So it's also important to hear how there are other stakeholders and players within the space and ecosystem that are not just doing the bare minimum, but even going above and beyond, to even try to call someone within the medical space to say, hey, I think this person might need help, is definitely going beyond the call of duty, but it is also the compassion that, we spoke about earlier, and the compassion that Patrice said never really existed years ago, but we're now there. I saw Ginny making some notes, and I'm going to come across to you, for example, in terms of how can we have more stakeholders and players within the ecosystem have better bridges in terms of understanding. She's like, whoa, hard question. How can we, in all of this, trying to increase our awareness for everyone, not just the persons who are drinking and experiencing what they are, but also the support system? How do we get all the players on the right page?
It's a really important, whoa, that got very loud. It's a very important question. It's actually something that my organization, HiArt, is working on right now, because we realize that as alcohol producers of beer, wine, and spirits, things that many people love, for those who choose to drink, broadly recognizing there's a lot of people out there who don't. And that's an important recognition, and it's important to recognize that. But that it's not simply with us. The buck doesn't just stop with the production. We have a long trail up and down the supply chain, ending with the bars, ending with the retailers. And it's very important to form the partnerships with those organizations, and that's something that our team and our companies are working on right now. How can we work together to build meaningful standards so that we can start to do exactly some of the things that you're talking about, whether it's training of retailers to recognize how you can identify someone who has been served too much and shouldn't have anymore, whether it's training to identify that underage person who should not be served ever, full stop, and making sure that they're not. What are the steps that we need to do? That also takes partnership with communities. It takes partnership with law enforcement. It takes partnerships with families and the educational system, so that that becomes a norm that we can change across society, because it's not going to be just a simple swath of the community that's going to be able to solve this unilaterally.
All right, Patrice, I'm coming across to you because you've been there, you've done that, you've seen the movie, you've read the book. You're also a transformative health and wellness coach, and a lot of people come to you to get them physically fit, but I've always heard that in the process of you getting people to their fitness level, you also help them here. I want to ask you, in your own personal journey, how does the intentional approach to your health, your physical health, fitness of mind, body, and soul, how did it play a role in your journey to health?
All right, so in my own personal journey where my health was concerned, those closest to me are also those who are part of my Dynamo community. I speak about it very publicly. I can name this country into poverty. I'm an eater. So what that means is, when I'm going through my emotional stuff, when I'm going through my depression, bouts, when I'm going through just general life stress, you know what Pat do? We just start eat, because I eat my emotions. Now, we all know the effects of what eating does. It makes you gain a little stuff that you don't want to gain in the areas that you don't want to gain. And, being in the health industry, being the face of health and wellness for one of the biggest health brands here in Jamaica and here in the Caribbean, you can imagine if I'm not looking how I'm supposed to look, the pressure becomes real. And then, so if I'm not looking how I'm supposed to look, then I lose confidence level. You understand me? So the pressure of looking a particular way is one thing. Then now, you also now have my personal struggles of the pressure of what I'm dealing with personally that comes into play. So I have to make sure that, for me, I start off with my whole well-being.
Yeah.
Once I'm okay mentally, So when I say okay mentally, I'm not speaking about my disease. And guys, it is a disease. You know, we try to make it look like it's not a disease because it's not something we can touch like the other disease. It is a disease. So I'm just speaking about your whole mental well-being. So once my whole mental well-being is good, for me, my mental well-being of being good is I get up in the morning and I go out for a run. Once I start my day with some sort of physical activity, my mind is already in a good place. Nothing can budge me for the rest of the day. You understand what I'm saying? So that set the tone of my day. Then now I start ensuring that, okay, you know, when my personal issues come into play, work stress come into play, you know, the disease that I have that I'm battling come into play, I make sure that I'm taking care of that. Then now I start taking care of the physical element of it. Because the truth of the matter is, and I have clients that come to me, they also are going through their own mental issues. And they think that the solution is to physically transform that. The truth of the matter is if the mind not transform, no matter how you transform everything, you can look the best out it is that you want to look in life. You can feel the best it is that you can feel health-wise. If up here, sir, not healthy, it defeats everything. And that's one of the main reasons why I decided that I am now going to speak vocally about my personal struggles, my own journey, because I realize, as Carla said, the stigma of society where we're not supposed to speak about the struggles it is that one have, especially when you're a public figure. When you're a public figure and you have a platform like my platform, I'm not supposed to speak about the fact that I have a disease. I'm not supposed to speak about it. I remember when I first came out about it and one of the local media carried the story, you know, the head of a PR agency actually called me and said to me, that's a bad career move. And this is in 2018. To show you, it says just right around the corner. So, you know, when my dear friend was quoting stats from 2016, 2017, I turned to Russell. I said, I want to hear the present stats. I don't want to hear stats from 2016, 2017. I want to hear stats now that we're out of COVID. You understand what I'm saying? You know, we can't be working with old-time stats. Because if in 2018, I hear that it's a career move, a disastrous career move of mine to speak about the disease that I have. You understand me? You know, persons don't know about the trauma I went through, you know, as a product of a teenage rape between 13 to 15. I'm an inner city. I'm the product of an inner city. Inner cities. And the statistics of inner cities is if you're a female from the inner city, by you reach 19, you're supposed to have 22 kids. By 30 baby fathers. Guys, we kind of exaggerate, but you get...
No, we understand. We understand.
You understand what I'm saying? And you know, when the area leader call, if you don't turn up, we all know what takes place. So when you now have a young lady like myself, in her teenage years, you understand me? And she's going through what I went through when I was her age, and she don't see an outlet out of, you know, her situation that she has no control over. And that trauma is going to continue following her throughout the rest of her life. You understand me? She's going to basically give up on life. How can my younger self know that she's not supposed to give up on life if you don't have persons like myself speaking about my journey, speaking about the fact that, guys, you know, I'm still willing myself to live. Up to 2 weeks ago, I'm still willing myself to live. But this is where community comes to play.
By the way, I don't know if anyone else is getting goosebumps. Like I'm listening to the story, and you can tell even in the tone how serious it is and how palpable it is. And I'm going to come across when she said just having the will to live. I heard Carla said that part. Carla, I'm going to come to you. But I'm going to also jump to Sarah based on what Patrice just said. Because this is how she represents so many people across various age groups. And it's one thing for the individual to be feeling this way. It's another thing when the people around them can't identify, don't understand what's going on. And even if we do identify and know what's going on, we feel helpless and hopeless. And so from the space that you sit as a counselor, as a specialist, are there any tips? And this is not that we, the community, can all of a sudden become counselors and do what you do. But do you have any tips for us to be armed with in terms of whether it is questions, whether it is making ourselves available? How do we avail ourselves and submit ourselves to our partners, loved ones, children, parents who might be feeling like that?
So I think the first thing is to listen, which I think isn't happening, right? I think that there's a resistance to listening for parents because it indicates that there's something wrong with me. And so I don't want to look at what I could have potentially done wrong, which isn't even what it is, right? It's that, no, we listen because there's something of value here and we need to understand what's happening. So I think that's the first part. I mean, I've worked across the Caribbean, and I can say, because I'm from the United States, we've been having the mental health conversation a lot longer in the United States. It's very new here. It's very, very new. I mean, it's not something that, you know, like you said, 5 years ago, it wasn't really happening. And so, I mean, listening, honestly listening to what people are saying. And I think, I know that it's a term of endearment here, but coming from the outside, when you tell somebody to hush, you're silencing them, you know, and I know what it means. I understand what it means, right? But you're silencing them because I'm coming to you and I'm saying, I'm hurting, I'm in pain, hush, right? So it's, I mean, it's no judgment, but just to understand that there's so much power in the things that we say and the things that we do and the way that we behave. I know young people are suffering coming out of COVID. Like, I know it. I've seen it. I've seen it across the board. It doesn't matter what socioeconomic class they come from. They're all suffering. And nobody's listening.
Carla, I see you doing this, and I know you work in many different spaces, and you are, of course, you are also someone who has experienced it. Talk to me about the language, and also give me your tips and your advice in terms of how we should use our language more responsibly when we are dealing with persons who are clearly reaching out and asking for help.
Great question. One of the first things we can do is recognize that we have been socialized to judge people who struggle at all because it's a sign that they are weak. And coming out of the context that we have come out of, coming out of the colonial context, a lot of us have families that don't come from generational wealth, or we have families that come from the merchant class, so them have money, but work is what we know. Get it done is what we know. And we now have no time for you to sit down and talk mental health day, go to work. Right? One, because if you don't go to work, you're going to starve. Two, your factory is going to close down. But also, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to be soft because so many of us have just been surviving. Most of us have just had to survive. Like, as I'm listening to this, I'm thinking the bartenders who are absorbing everybody's story,
and
what's happening with their mental health. When you come from an inner city community, when you're struggling and you're the only person that's struggling, that's one thing. When you come from a place where the culture is struggle, and everybody around you has a mental health condition to the point where it's invisible, and everybody wake up in the morning and drink a special for start them day, and that's just the way it goes, you don't even recognize that you're struggling because this is the norm. And thank you. And when you try to articulate that you're struggling, people say, what do you? At this everybody got through, at this your granny got through, shut up your mouth,
make you special.
Make you special, you're too soft, we send you go to the uptown school and at this you're turning, you know. I tell you, them shouldn't send it to that school. So I think recognize that we are trained to other people who struggle because we don't want to recognize the struggle in ourselves. We are trained to judge people who struggle because then we can make it a personal failure on their part. And if it's a personal failure, we can solve it. Or you're a failed person versus you're living inside of a system that pushes you towards these behaviors. So it's about that type of internal self-check. The other thing that I do before I even start to use language is, what is this person's story making me feel about myself? I need to know that before I try to respond to their story, because if not, I am going to project all of my issues onto them. Right? So, I saw the thing said, no, erase it from your vocabulary, it's not useful. I saw the thing said, man, I just said, wall it, Erase it from your vocabulary, especially with men. When men come, just hold it, my lord, just hold it, man. You know, so the thing said, just what? No, we're not holding anything. We're not bankers. We're not holding it, right? Resist the urge to try to fix and language that's fixing language. Just do this. Just do that. Why you don't just try this? If you're not a mental health professional, it's likely that you actually can't tell me what to try. And it's very unlikely that there's anything I can just do, because just implies that it is a simple thing.
It's
just
so
one.
easy.
It's not just, right? So when you find yourself trying to offer simple solutions to people just like that, hold back on that. The reflex to correct and fix, and if you find that somebody has come to you with their issue and it's not 80% them talking and 20% you talking, you're in our problems, because you take over the people conversation
and not listening, as Sarah
said.
said.
Helpful anymore. You're not being helpful anymore.
Can I just say that was a word?
Amen.
That was a word. We have questions from Facebook and YouTube, and I'm going to head to the first one. How can parents strike a balance between allowing their teenagers to develop independence and autonomy while still providing guidance and support to promote their mental well-being? So here are parents who want to be involved, they want to be okay, but they kind of want to give that room to grow, all while trying to help them take care of that mental health and that well-being. Anyone who wants to take that, especially if it's an expert?
So I really like this question, because I think what happens a lot of times with parents, with adults, not just parents, is we forget what it is to be a teenager, right? And so that developing independence and autonomy is that's the precursor to the teenage years. We also know that teenagers, the last part of their brain to develop is the decision-making and emotional regulation. And so part of the role of a teenager is to make really bad decisions. Listen, again, as a parent, right? Provide a space where your child feels safe and comfortable to come and talk to you about whatever it is. There's no limitations. You can come to me with anything, and this is a safe space. And I just think listening is of utmost importance, and I don't think any of us really do it well enough. We do it with the intention to answer or heal or have a response, instead of just truly hearing what the person is saying.
Carla, you can add, and then I'm coming to Patrice.
One thing I'd like to add is that sometimes parents try to pull the switcheroo when you're already a teenager. So they were extremely strict when you are growing up, and then when you get to be a teenager, then they're trying to kind of give you more space. The child is already in the habit of hiding things from you. And so you have to face the impact of this maybe strict authoritarian parenting early out if you want them to be able to come to you, because they're not naturally just going to do that. As they're growing, you'll have to face that you are transitioning, but your child won't naturally transition with you. So there might be conversations that you need to have to build their trust that you are being different.
Patrice.
All right. As parents, we have to, from early out, start having those uncomfortable conversations. So I'm 43. You understand me? My daughter is 19 years of age. I'm old. My daughter is 19 years of age. I am not the 19-year-old. How I managed life when I was 19, my now 19-year-old cannot manage life like that. So when your child comes to you to say to you that they're struggling with this, so let's like use schoolwork as an example. But that's easy. No. You need to listen. So because of what I went through as a teenager, I didn't get to live a teenage year. I ensured that when I had my daughter, I was going to have the relationship with my daughter, because I need to break that generational curse of not having a relationship with my mother, because I'm the product of a teenage pregnancy. So the first step for me was, I am going to have a relationship with my daughter where it doesn't matter what conversation she wants to have with me, even though I am the strict parent. To date, her friends still can't believe that I allow her to do certain things because I am the strict parent, but my child comes to me and tells me everything, every single thing. And then because I also have my own struggles, I picked up when she was 16 years of age that she started having anxiety attacks. So then I was able to jump in and get the necessary help in place for her. So as parents, we need to know that, especially parents of the Gen Z generation is teaching us a lot about mental health. So we might not like them, the older generation. I don't know what me falling on, what level me falling, I don't know. You understand me? But we might not see eye to eye with the Gen Z generation, because once their mental health comes into play, they will walk off that job. They are not making anything disturb that mental health space. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're a parent of a Gen Z, you need to make sure that when they come to you to say, Mommy, Daddy, you know, I'm having this issue, I'm struggling, you know, I'm having anxiety attacks, I think I'm doing too much schoolwork, or I can't balance this or I can't balance that. You have to listen to your kids. You have to. I know my child suffers from anxiety attacks. She's in college, she's in university, on the dean's list, and I have to ensure that, here what, baby girl, you just need to concentrate on school, we'll figure out how the school fee go pay. You understand me? You ain't going to be going to Johnson & Wales and be doing a job because we are trying to make the school fee pay. Your job is to go to school. I will figure that out. Because I know that if she go and do her work and then do the school work, then everything will work. Exactly.
Great addition. Jason, I'm coming to you because Carla said to it, she spoke to it. The fact that we have persons who are not certified, qualified, specialists, counselors, therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, who end up being those people because of the role that they play. And as you said earlier, a lot of the connections that are made between patrons who might be just there to enjoy themselves or to offload happens between them and the bartenders. And a lot of the time, the bartenders may take on a lot. As an employer, how do you also ensure or create an environment where even your bartenders, your servers, your waiters, all of these people coming into contact with potentially heavy information get a chance to reset, decompress, come again?
One of the main things I believe in is leading by example. And as it pertains to alcohol, when you drink, you don't waste tomorrow. You don't drink and have a hangover and don't go work tomorrow. So that's big in my business. You drink, you enjoy yourself, you play hard, you work hard. We start to instill certain morals. We have our staff training and we have our staff days and all, you know, things that build staff community and moral. But separate apart from that, it's leading by example. And a lot of times, these young youths come to work somewhere, they didn't have a father, they don't have a father figure. And what a good workplace and a good community does, which is what we call our business, it have you rubbing shoulders with older guys that are been through it, have sons just as old as you, managers, floor managers, myself. And they start to see what it means to be a man or to be a woman. They start to come around people that get up every morning, carry kids to school, come to work, have a good time. They're not workaholics. Have a good time. They're normal people. A lot of times I see staff who come to me and say, boy, boss, I can't believe you're so cool. Because they almost believe from where they come from that people like me are aliens.
Far removed.
Yeah, it's far removed. They could never be somebody that could get up in the morning, put on a big boy pants, come to work, and yet still be cool and still be all right. Leading by example and just being in a social setting. They don't see themselves ever working in a bank. They don't see themselves, you know, doing a lot of that high-profile job. So guess what happened? They start working in a bar or a restaurant. And it takes them in young. And it takes them untrained and it takes them uneducated. But then it starts to grow them and build them. And work ethic starts to build. And being a nice guy, being pleasant while still going through your problems is also a way of coping. And then you start to, over time, become a man. And you become a man by being around men. Lions hunt together, and once you're in the pack, you start to become a lion. And I see it. I mean, I've hired youths straight out of high school, even before they left high school, and to see them grow and become, you know, people without fathers, but living on the street. And I've had people living at Pier 1 because they had no home, and to see them graduate from school and become a man and did not succumb to their stereotype, but actually were able to fraternize with customers. And get bigger jobs and meet people and end up getting married and go to foreign and come back and say, look, I'm now well off.
I did it.
And that is, I mean, it is just one community of many. Yeah. Church is one, you know, a football team is another one. You know, anywhere you can get good example and structure, it will do that. And for them, a bar is the first place that will take them in.
I appreciate that. Ginny, I'm coming to you. This was a question from YouTube. Are there specific mental health disorders that are commonly associated with or made worse by alcohol use? And that could either go between Ginny or Sarah, depending on your level of understanding in terms of, are there specific mental health disorders that are commonly associated with alcohol?
I'm going to pass the clinical question to my clinician friend over here, but I want to pick up, if I may,
absolutely,
on something that Jason had mentioned, which was about the leading by example. And I think, we have many leading companies around our table, Heineken being a prime example. And when you have big businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, putting excellent practices and standards in place, that continues to permeate across society. I'm looking here. We are in a conference room by Heineken, owned by Heineken, on a Heineken Red Stripe facility, right? The cabinet over there that contains the alcohol is locked. What does that tell you? That tells you they have a workplace policy in place that says drinking on the job is not acceptable. That's not an acceptable norm. You heard Diane speak earlier about the workplace wellness policies they have, the resources they have for mental health, the resources they have for physical health, because WHO well recognizes that it's not just the absence of disease, but health is all the social, mental, physical well-being. So when you have leading companies set the example for medium, small-sized companies and set these norms, we can start a wave of change, a positive wave of change that can be very, very powerful. Heineken's also done some other really interesting work in terms of changing some social norms in other spaces, but I'll save that for Diane to speak about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it is, I think, as we said, the collective effort of getting not just one space or one area, but having it move through and impact and empower and enable and transform other spaces. I'm going to throw the question to you in terms of, are there specific mental health disorders that are commonly associated with or made worse by alcohol abuse? That question is from YouTube.
So when every time that I approach mental health or substance misuse, I think it's so individual based. So everybody's experience is different because my biochemistry is different from your biochemistry. So the way that alcohol impacts me is going to impact you differently. The way that I experience depression is going to be different than the way that you experience depression. So we know that there are certain neurotransmitters in the brain that are affected by alcohol use. So we can say that, depression, anxiety can be exacerbated by excessive alcohol use, even minimal alcohol use for some. But it's really individually based. I think everything is individually based. Everybody's experience is unique, and that's an important thing to know.
And I appreciate your answer, because what we don't want to do is we do not want disinformation or misinformation. We do not want people to latch on to a particular thing and then apply it to everything across the board. I think it is very important that your answer kind of said, hey, it's not really wise to say this causes this and this is, but really looking at the individual, the symptoms of that individual, and then actually diagnosing it on a very clinical level. Thank you for that. Carla, how can people adjust, in your opinion, to use better stress coping skills? As many people started, somebody here from Facebook says, many people started even drinking during COVID. So we saw people starting new habits and forming new habits during COVID when the stressors are there, you're not able to connect in the spaces you typically do. What are some of the tips that you have for persons who may be trying to cope?
Great question. The starting point of any type of coping mechanism that I use or anything that I implement for my mental health is to ask myself, what do I need? Because a lot of times when we use things like alcohol and other substances, there's a need that we cannot get met. Something we need, something we feel we're trying to run away from, or something that we need that we feel we can't access. So I ask myself, what do I need? So COVID. COVID was a lonely time. We were separated from our communities, and a lot of us just needed connection. And so I had to go out and find that. What does connection look like? Is it that I want to talk to somebody on Zoom, or is it that I want to mask up and go and actually sit down with a human because I just need physical touch from a person? What am I feeling? I am feeling anxious. What are you feeling anxious about? I'm feeling anxious about work. Okay, what is it about work? I'm feeling anxious because my boss never affirms me and I feel as though everything that I do is wrong. Okay, is your boss actually doing that? Or is your mind telling you that because your boss reminds you of your mother? And your mother used to do that. The boss reminded me of my mother, oh, well, it looks like you should go and heal there. Work on that. And, but a lot of it is about being present. So what is it that I need? What is it that I'm feeling? If I find that I am engaging in a lot of things that are taking me out of my mind, it means that there's something I want to escape. Sometimes you have to do a little assessment, a little recon, look around you, look at your relationships, and find out what is it that I need to address. A lot of times we take an additive approach when it comes on to our mental health. I need to do more of this. But sometimes what you need to do is let things go. Because you will be drinking forever because that relationship is toxic. You will be drinking forever because you hate your work environment. You will be drinking forever because you're living inside of a body that you don't find attractive and you don't know, you feel like you are incapable of doing something to your body. Get in there with yourself, like connect with yourself and ask yourself, is it that there are things I need to add to my experience to improve my mental health? Or are there situations that are detrimental to my mental health that I need to address so that I can feel better on a daily?
I appreciate that. Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience? I know a lot of my attention has been on the panelists, the questions here on my iPad. Do we have any questions from anyone here in the audience? I have Dr. Goldburn, our keynote speaker in the front there. I don't know if we can get a mic very quickly, and I know that we're quickly running out of time. I don't know if we can have him. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, panelists. This question from Ms. Patricia White. When is the help available turn against you? Elaborate. What do you mean by help turn against you?
Boy, Doc, you have some burpees to do too. It's Patrice. Oh my God! All right. So I had a abusive, traumatic incident in 2020. That the end result of that experience was I turned to alcohol, took some pills because I wanted to kill myself. Cool? And my daughter found me passed out in the bathroom, called my friend. A therapist was called to my location. Cool? Started seeing that therapist, had 2 sessions with that therapist. I ceased the rest of sessions because then, we find out. So let me explain to you, one of the main reasons why persons don't go to professionals for help is because of what is called a trust issue. You understand me? You're not going to sit and talk about your personal struggles if you're not in an environment that is not trustworthy. Cool? So my same friend, after that incident, started sharing with me that, information that she has confided in the therapist, those informations are she's hearing back information. I then started hearing back my own information, so I stopped using the therapist. Cool? So fast forward now, last year, last year was a very traumatic year for me. It's one of the worst years in my life, personally, and I'm a public figure, and I have to turn up for work every single day where I'm in front of the camera.
With a smile on your face.
With a smile on my face. Cool? And I am dealing with this personal private issue, and I am, I got a letter that I am reading, written by that same therapist, that she did for somebody else, speaking on my mental condition. Yeah, man. You get where I'm coming from? So let us put it into perspective now, guys. I am in the position where I have a community that can assist me. You understand what I'm saying? I'm in the position where I can go head to head with a body that governs the therapist in Jamaica or the therapist itself. You understand what I'm saying? Think about an individual who have my condition, suffers from clinical depression, tries to kill themselves,
tries to get the help
on multiple occasions. You understand what I'm saying? Is going through a traumatic personal issue, and then that, that therapist who is supposed to be helping them 2 years before is using her own mental issue against you. What do you think that person is going to do? They're not going to kill themselves. We'll keep it real. They're going to kill themselves. We're going to keep it real. And then now, you're going to have persons who don't know the battles that they're fighting behind closed door. Because if I didn't share with you guys that last year was the most traumatic year in my 43 years on earth existence, and I'm turning up because I'm the face of health and wellness for one of the biggest health company in the Caribbean, and one of my work obligation is I'm always in front of the camera. Nobody knows what I'm going through personally. Only my community and the company that I work with. I love them dearly because they were right behind me fully. They knew what I was dealing with. So imagine somebody who don't have the community and that support to guide them, and then now they're reading the worst thing about them in a letter. I'm not a therapist, but I know that ethically that was wrong.
Those were the exact words that Sarah
You get where I'm coming from? I then had to find out from my lawyer which body governs therapists in Jamaica. I went there. First of all, that body's in shams. We're keeping it real again, guys. I'm sorry to be doing this here, but we have to keep it real because these are the things persons go through when they're trying to seek help. When I went to the body is in shams. All I have is just a little interface in terms of our office, but no real support there in terms of our ethics committee. I had to go online, I had to make phone calls, then I had to fill out documentations, etc. This was done from last year, September. Nobody from that body got back to me. Do you know when I got an email? I got an email, I think it was 2 weeks ago, right before I got the phone call for this from Red Stripe. Or last week. I can look for the date, I don't remember. But I got an email because I did an interview, a mental health, just like this, because I go to mental health discussion, forums, panels, stuff like that. I did an interview that was done last year, September, while in my own traumatic stage. I was asked to do an interview to speak on mental health and, stuff like, etc. And I did that interview. So because it's Mental Health Awareness Month, I released clips. So people think it was a fresh interview. It wasn't. It was done from last year, September. So I released clips where the part of the clip that speaks about a lot of times persons who commit suicide do it because they do not get the help that they want. And they don't trust the person that they're, the body that they're supposed to go to for help. And I just gave a little snippet of my personal situation. That, and I posted on TikTok after. I repurposed it, posted on TikTok, and that video went viral. And that was when now I got an email from the body with the therapist's response in terms of what I brought to the ethics committee. Now, that is a matter I'll deal with privately. But again, what I'm getting at is you have individuals who they do not have a community around them. They do not have a support system around them. They do not even know where to go in terms of when code of ethics is broken.
And I think...
What do you think is going to happen?
And I think, and I thank you for that question, because it also gives us a very good idea of really the trust issues, right? And the gatekeepers. So it's one thing to have all the resources and we see them written there and we have the numbers. It's another thing when that individual actually tries to now reach out. And then it's what happens within that period of time that can actually be helpful on their road to recovery or actually helps to amplify or exacerbate what's going on. And so the question becomes, are we actually making sure that there's a quality assessment? And this is not just, okay, we train somebody, we have somebody there, okay, they're good, and then the entity just runs off by itself. But are we actively, consistently, constantly assessing and analyzing if the persons who are sitting down there as counselors, specialists, therapists, guidance counselors in schools, who can also be some of the most inappropriate? If you speak to students, they will tell you that even things that they have shared with their guidance counselors are becoming hot topics at school. And so, I mean, this is the kind of conversation that could go on, and I want to thank us, and I see Dr. Goldburn writing, he's making his notes. I'm going to take maybe 2 more questions. Sure, Sarah, and then I'm coming to...
I think there's something really important to say about what you just said, which is also that I, as the client, need to know that I can advocate for myself, right? That like I will go to 15 different clinicians until I find the one that I feel safe enough with and that I trust. Because I don't think people know that. And because the conversation of mental health is so new, right? Oh, well, she's the expert, so I'm going to go to her. And then I'm sitting there and I'm not really telling you what's really deep inside of me because something doesn't quite feel right, but you're the expert, so I'm supposed to trust you. And I think we do this overall in medicine, is that we trust the expert, but the expert doesn't know everything, and they might not be the right fit for you. And it's really important to know that there's a lot of clinicians out here. So just keep going to different people until you really find the person that you can trust. And 100%, confidentiality is the baseline for what we should be doing. So I apologize for all clinicians because it was wrong. That's not supposed to happen.
And I think it also shows us that you are not only within your right to self-advocate, but you're also within your right to ensure that someone else does not experience that. And I think the approach that is taken is not just I'm in a position to find a different therapist and just leave it like that, which is what Patrice could have done, but instead saying, you should not have the capacity or the chance to do this to someone else. I have a question here. I don't know if I can get a mic, and then Senior Superintendent. Okay, I'm going to look at our keynote speaker helping us out on the floor. I appreciate it. This is what a town hall looks and feels like. Thank you so very much.
Good afternoon. Janelle Brooks, counseling psychologist, mental health advocate, campionite as well. Dr. Goldburn, really? So we're on the topic of responsibility. I also am, like I said, a mental health advocate and been in the trenches for a long time, work with Dr. Goldburn, etc. Kudos to Red Stripe and Heineken for this town hall and for this forum. My encouragement to us all is for it not to stop here. Working in the system, I can tell you that we need all of the support that we could possibly get. So my charge to everyone here as we're speaking about responsibility is that we all have the ability to be, to be advocates, right, in our everyday lives and areas. And mental health is something that is now just getting attention because of COVID, but we've been doing this a long time and nobody never did listen to it, right? So now that we're here and we're talking, can we continue this conversation for the rest of the year, for the rest of the years? Patrice, hi, sorry that happened to you, and thank you for speaking out. And this is an example of how people can be advocates in this regard, because the system that does, govern the psychologists, etc., you need a little work, right?
And
if
you know it need more than that.
I'm being diplomatic.
We go way back. Because we have been in this space, we have been on school tours. My own situation has allowed me to start a school tour before COVID in 2018. And Janelle was one of the persons that would
burpees for you.
You see it,
Janelle. Continue.
She's one of the persons who have done, presentation to the kids force, etc., whatever. But them need more than that.
Yes, which is my charge to everyone here is let's just keep this conversation going. Continue to advocate for more mental health services, for more mental health funding. We need that for proper standards and procedures for psychologists, all of that, right? Proper policies, etc. We need all of that. So that's my charge to all of us here and everyone who is watching wherever. And I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
I appreciate that addition. I'm going to ask the mic to get over to Senior Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay. Then I'm going to come to Tammy, and I'm probably going to have to wrap up by asking my panelists to give me a 1 minute for our viewers. Superintendent, Senior Superintendent, could you stand so that we can see you?
I thought I was starting off. All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, thanks for sharing your story. In my line of work, I see different things. At some point, it becomes mental health. And I don't know who can take this, but for somebody who is just looking on and listening, how do you know very early especially with our young people. Because the kind of things that we're seeing from our young people, for us in law enforcement, is breaking the law. It's crime. But then when you delve into it some more, it has a name that's called mental health. How do we talk to parents? How do we talk to people who are interacting with these young people on a daily basis? What are some of the early signs that you look for? Because some of the things that we are seeing really now is rum and boom. And that's what a lot of young people in schools that they're doing. They're becoming alcoholic at very tender ages. And then when you interact with them, they're having personal challenges. What do we look for very early?
Thank you so very much for that. And even to add to that, not only is it alcohol, but we see other substance abuse in schools. We see our teenagers mixing things and going to different fora like this. We actually see members of the JCF trying to explain to us how deep this goes. So the question, what are some of the signs that we should look for? How do we as parents, as parts of the community, identify these things and try to intervene before it becomes really criminal? And then we have to now look at juvenile detention and possibly integrating in the larger adult correctional facilities. Like, how do we identify those symptoms early? I'm looking at Sarah, but I also know it's a loaded question, and you can explain it to us as a panelist. But I also know that we have representatives from mental health organizations who also are on the front line in dealing with issues like this. So if you have something that will add value to the conversation or the question, please just let me know. Sarah, you said it was a loaded question. Let me understand that more.
I mean, I think it's such a multi-layered thing, right? So first we're assuming that the parent knows their child well enough to notice that things are starting to change, right? And I think that that's a misnomer, because I think a lot of parents don't.
Yeah,
they wouldn't even notice when there's subtle changes happening with their child. They don't notice until it's extreme and now it's reached the level where it needs real intervention, right? So there's subtle things that happen, like loss of interest in things that were once interesting, maybe change in peer group. If they were communicative, they're not so much anymore. Maybe they're not eating, or they're sleeping too much, or they're not sleeping at all. But you have to know your child to know that those things are happening. And I think a lot of times parents aren't paying attention. So the subtle signs that are there get missed until it becomes something huge. I also think, I always say with any substance that anybody's using, you're using it because it's doing something for you, right? So what is the benefit that you're getting from it, and why? You know, with behavioral issues, I always ask the question, what's behind the behavior? If a young person is acting out in a particular way, there's a reason. So I say it's multi-layered because there's so many other issues that underlie all of that could be going on. What's happening in your community, what's happening at home, what's happening in your school, what's happening personally, what's happening emotionally. There's so many pieces at play that, again, it comes back to the listening. Are you a parent who listens and is actively involved in your child's life so that you recognize and understand when things start to look a little amiss? And I think that's where it starts.
Absolutely. Sure.
Yeah, especially, and I love that the parents are asking this question, because the things that happen with young people, we often miss it because it overlaps with when we think a young picnic get bad. Right? Them bad and them worthless and them lazy because they're sleeping a lot, or they're in the game a lot. They're not doing anything. They're just in the game all the time. As you said, sometimes it seems that the friend group is changing regularly, and then we set them a follow bad company. They might come across as irritable and angry, and for parents that might seem like the child is disrespectful. They don't want to take talking from anybody.
Or them just going through a phase.
Yes, them going through a phase. So a lot of these things that we equate with young people becoming bad can actually be signs that our young people are having mental health challenges, which is why being compassionate and curious as a parent becomes so important. I am curious about what's happening to my child and why it's happening to my child. And I'm greeting my child from a place where I want to help you through what you're going through versus I want to punish you for the symptom of a deeper problem that you're having.
Good point.
I just want to tag on to what Carla said. So let us now look at it from the angle of the school. So if you have a child that is going through traumatic incidents at home, the parent is not going to be looking for those signs because he probably themselves is contributing to it. So when those kids go to school, I'm going to use myself as an example. I had the intervention of my principal. It reached a point when I was going to Merle Grove where my principal was tired of seeing me at her office because every fight that took place at Spanish Town bus stop is me. I'm the head of it. You understand me? But that was my way of dealing with what it is that I was going through personally. And, you know, it reached a point where she took me, you know, it wasn't a reprimand situation as, you know, you're normally at the principal office and you detention, reprimand, stuff like that. It's, Patrice, what's going on? You understand me? If you continue along this path, you're going to become a product of the state.
Mental.
You understand me? What we're having now is when we see kids act out, we just regard them as bad pitney and we're done with them. We are living in a digital era where most times we're more interested in putting online the negative aspects of what kids are doing than trying to find out why it is you're doing this. How can I help you? How can I solve what is going on? If you're not having those uncomfortable, real conversations with them, you're not going to know what is taking place at home or what is taking place wherever that is contributing to it. My principal could not help me with what was going on at home in terms of, remember she can't take me out of my home and put me up. But she assisted me just by having that raw nitty-gritty conversation in terms of if you continue along this path, this is what is going to happen. So let us try to go along this path. You understand me? We can't change this home situation, but I can help you to change that situation.
And it's just by caring. It's literally just by saying, I identify something, let us talk.
Exactly.
I know that we're running out of time, so very quickly, I'm going to go to Tammy. Tammy had her hand. I see Tammy, mental health advocate, a very strong voice in the space, especially for youths. So good to have you, Tammy. And then right after that, I'm going to wrap up. But before we wrap up, I have a very exciting announcement to make. So for those of you watching virtually, just stick and stay. I promise you're going to want to hear that announcement. And then we will wrap up with our panel discussion. Tammy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I am Tamika Coley, Director of Advocacy and Awareness for Jamaica Mental Health Advocacy Network, JAMHAN. And I wanted to just make an addendum to the two last points that were made. So everyone was speaking about things like, you know, pulling back, withdrawing, sleeping, partying, that kind of thing. I just wanted to let you guys know that it looks different between males and females. Yes, of course, there's a gender binary that we need to acknowledge. But just to make it clearer, for men, they tend to get more explosive, lean more into alcohol, probably get promiscuous, party more, that kind of thing. Women, because of the way that the society is structured, we don't have that much leeway to do those kinds of things and get away with it. So you'll find more of the withdrawal. You'll find more of the self-harm and that kind of thing where women are concerned. So pay attention to their physical appearance, see if there are any changes in the hygiene, in how they're styling their hair. Some people will start eating more just to try and get fatter so that they're less noticeable, that kind of thing, so that they're less likely to be abused. So just wanted to make that distinction. And in terms of support and where you can direct young people to, the Ministry of Health has a helpline called 8881-LOVE. There is JAMHAN. We are online everywhere at JAMHAN_JA. We direct people to wherever they need to go to get help. We direct people to get evaluated, assessed, wherever. So a lot of people come to us first where that is concerned because it depends on how sensitive the situation is, the age, you know, whether they want a male or female, that kind of thing. And with youth, it's a very, very touchy subject. So I think to put ourselves out there in terms of if you don't know where to send people to, send them to us first, and then we will help them figure out where is best for them to go. And also a shameless plug, Sim Soul Sessions and JAMHAN are teaming up to do a safe space specifically targeting young people. And I will be sending a sponsorship letter to Red Stripe on Monday.
Thank you so very much, Tammy. Thank you very much. Thank you for adding in the space. I personally Tammy, I personally have a lot of persons in my community who send me DMs all the time in terms of mental health. And because I understand, one, I may not have the capacity, especially when I am one on my side. And so many, especially young persons, come to me. I always direct them to your organization because I know of the work that you guys do and continue to do the fantastic work. We got so many questions, and again, something like this, so layered, so many intersections, so many different kinds of people, manifestations, symptoms. Very quickly before we get into our announcement, I want to give each panelist, maybe because of the space you work in, the role or the responsibility you may have. We have a lot of parents watching. We have partners watching. We have people who are employees watching. Just get under a minute, if you can, your last words. And I'll start with Jason and then move down.
I think where I sit, it's to show the lighter side of alcohol. The discussion heavy. It really, really heavy, and I take all the points, and it is the reality of a lot of young people. But there is a lighter side to drinking, and there's a lighter side to the fellowship. I mean, most people in this room has met their husband or wife at a bar. A lot of problems have been solved. A lot of networking happened at a bar. A lot of problems are solved. And I mean, literally, I'll be at the bar and a man come in with a problem that he cannot get over. And I'll say, just talk to that man over there, man. Him, come here. Boom, boom, boom. Give me your number and boom, boom. All of a sudden, problem solved. It is a watering hole, and that effect is euphoric at times. Yes, if somebody comes into our space and does have a problem, it's not easily fixed. But, I mean, mental problem, of course. It's not easily fixed, but it does give that person a break from, let's call it, reality. It does show that person that life is not that hard and it's not that serious. If it's even for a brief moment. A lot of the people that come to a bar to drink with a mental health issue, it's because they've probably gone to other places and have been judged. Whether it's the church, whether it's school, whether it's some peer mentoring, some space, and has been judged maybe because of who they are, where they come from, maybe what they do for a living. But when they come to a bar, it's always hugs and open arms. And of course, you're going to have bad bars. And there's a commerce side to having people in your space that are abusing alcohol. It does. I mean, and we all know you go to a bar, and there's always 2 or 3 drunk men that's at the bar that there's like them live there from 6 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock at night, them drunk. And they create a very negative environment. And those people we can clearly see has destroyed their life and their physical body with alcohol. And there's no purpose to them but to go to the bar and drink. It actually turns customers off. So it's not something that bars tend to promote.
But they should be responsible as being stakeholders.
They should be. And that's why I say you have the difference in bars and clubs and responsible. But I mean, just to add a point, I actually tasked my HR with finding a corporate solution for our staff. And we weren't able to find one. There's no number. We're actually looking at an online site that you can just call up or you can actually get from your phone where there are psychologists that will speak to you. But it didn't happen. There's nowhere local that you can, as a company, like you can get a wellness coach to come in and do workouts. There's nothing like that.
Well, you are in the right place because we have a lot of resources, a lot of people. Trust me, you are in the right space. Thank you, Jason. Patrice, a minute or under, please.
You know me, I plug my business, Jason. We talk after. All right. So I'm going to speak from 2 different stands. To persons who are struggling with any other illness under the mental health umbrella, the first thing is acceptance. You have to accept the fact that you really need help. You understand me? Running is not the therapy for the help. Working out is not the therapy for the help. Drinking is not the therapy for the help. If you get where I'm coming from. The running, the physical element of it assists with your therapical treatment. But you need to get professional help. You understand me? There's no need to be ashamed of the condition it is that you have. The first step in terms of getting help, if you have any traumatic experiences or incidents that is aligned with your disease, you have to definitely heal from that. You understand me? You have, it's different stages that you go through. So speaking from that element, now speaking from the stance of the individuals who have to deal with these persons who, are suffering from the depressions, the anxiety attack, the bipolar, the different diseases that are underneath the umbrella. You have to be patient. You have to give, sometimes you have to also give what is called the hard love. The hard love is when you have that person that do not want to get the professional help, you have to put down your foot. If the professional help need to come to them, then the professional help have to come to them. You have to now also understand the individual. So because some of the time, especially when they're a strong individual, like myself, you will not know when I'm going through an episode. Because I'm always there at work. I'm working, I'm turning up. And this is a time when if the person eventually go through the suicide, then you're going to say, oh, shucks, I never see the sign. So you have to understand the individual. So when you see certain changes in terms of their mood, their pattern. So like my friends, if my friends don't hear from me within 2 days,
they check in.
Then I give me them check there. My Dynamo community, I use my platform for strictly good. You understand me? Because social media have the negative element of it. My Dynamo community, because they know of my condition, if they don't see me post on my Instagram story 3 days, they realize that something must be wrong. Because even if I don't do a surface post, I'll have something in my story. So you look for certain little signs, you understand me, and do those necessary checks. Also, educate yourself. So with education, you can also offer them the guidance in terms of the direction that they need to go.
Thank you. Ginny.
I guess first of all, thank you. Because what you've done today is bring together the most remarkable group of diverse voices across a community. You have practitioners, you have advocates, you have survivors and people in recovery. You've brought together retailers. You bring in some of the producers. These are exactly the kinds of conversations that need to happen so that we can address the harms where they are, local to the communities in which they exist. I think the meta message is here. There's no one-size-fits-all solution to solving the challenges in any community, whether it's Kingston or whether it's Montego Bay across the island. We need to come together and have these conversations because there's something that each of us can bring to the table. In my sector, some of the producers likes to help be that convener and bring them together and really have these conversations. And then at least what we can do is we can help set standards. We can help bring people together. And I would just say, let's keep doing more of it. These are the kinds of conversations, this raising awareness of mental health, this raising awareness of harmful use. If these are conversations that have not been happening until the pandemic, okay, if this is the one good thing that comes out of the pandemic, let this be a really important outcome, that we can finally speak freely about these issues. We talk about our own challenges, very personal challenges, so thank you to you. And bring forth solutions, listening skills more than anything, so that we can try to find some solutions in our each unique way.
Thank you. Thank you for your addition. Sarah, over to you.
So I also want to thank you, and I just want to reflect on how beautiful it is to see the conversation about mental health happening and to see the conversation about substance misuse happening. I have a question about what it means to drink responsibly. I mean, I don't think that that's really understood. What does that mean? What does it mean to me versus you? And so I think that that's a bigger question and a bigger conversation to have, which leads into education, right? How are we educating people about responsible drinking? Like, what does that mean? What does it mean to drink safely? Education is a huge part of it. And I just want to say that if you're feeling emotional distress or you're struggling or you're having some sort of a mental health struggle, it just means you're human, because it happens to all of us. It's not, it happens to all of us, in varying degrees. It's part of the human experience. And so people are here to help, and people are here to listen, and I think we should all be listening to each other more and really trying to understand from a place of compassion.
Thank you so very much. Carla, you have the very last word.
So if you're somebody who's listening and you're wondering what you can do to support the conversation around mental health, amplify the voices of people who are already doing the work. So you have like a Tammy, you have a Jamhan, you have Janelle, you have Rise Life Management. You can start by simply resharing their messages. When somebody discloses to you that they have a mental health condition, please do not undermine their capacity as a result. Don't start doubting their ability as a worker. Don't start immediately doubting their ability as a student. Don't treat them like something is wrong with them and you can't trust them with important things because, oh, she's going to have a depressive episode and ruin my empire. No, she won't, right? And the final thing is, yes, you're absolutely human and you deserve support, but sometimes you require support to go and get support. So sometimes you need somebody to hold your hand while you go out searching for a therapist, and it might require you accessing your community more than you had imagined. But if you can come to the understanding that there's nothing fundamentally wrong with you and there's nothing for you to be ashamed of and you don't need to suffer because you struggle, then you're already ahead of the game.
Carlo, well said. I think that's a perfect way to wrap the panel discussion. Thank you so very much to Carla, Sarah, Ginny, Patrice, Jason. Thank you so very much for your input. I know that we're almost out of time, guys, but I did say that we have a fantastic announcement, and I know a lot of persons in the room will actually think that this is something that we absolutely need. So before we get to that announcement, let's take a quick break.
As you go about your everyday life, take good care of yourself. Remember to balance things. Celebrate with your favorite beverages. And enjoy a healthy, balanced meal as well. So eat right and drink responsibly. They go great together. Cheers to the best in life. Must be 18 years or older. Drink and live responsibly.
We're keeping it up.
Welcome to season 2 of Bear Love. I'm your resident Bear Bay, Ashley M. And on last season, we would have explored the history of bear, how bear was made, the quality of bear, and which foods pair best with which bears.
And in season 2, we're having conversations over beer.
Okay.
So that we can share more of the word about responsible consumption with more people.
Once you have the information from somebody you trust in your village, whether it be a grandfather, auntie, a cousin, an older cousin, you trust that information, and it's better to get that information from somebody inside your circle than out the road.
You want to make sure that you are conscious of how you consume alcohol, because we really want people to drink, but we want them to do it responsibly.
Very superstitious. Writings on the wall. When you believe in it, but you don't understand that you're superstition ain't the way.
As you go about your everyday life, take good care of yourself. Remember to balance things. Celebrate with your favorite beverages. And enjoy a healthy, balanced meal as well. So eat right and drink responsibly. They go great together. Cheers to the best in life. Must be 18 years or older. Drink and live responsibly.
Thank you so very much for sticking and staying. I know earlier I said, this was going to last for like an hour and a half and we will be out of here. But as you can only imagine, when we're speaking about mental health, it is not something that we can just do this and that. So I just want to thank each and every one of you who came in from YouTube, you're watching on Facebook, the panelists, the organizations that are represented in the audience for adding every piece of valuable nugget to the conversation. But I did say that there was a very special announcement. I wasn't even told what this announcement was going to be. So I'm going to find out at the same time with you. So I invite Diane to make an announcement on an upcoming partnership. Over to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, what an afternoon. I mean, I need a response. As heavy as it was, as Jason says, it's a conversation, like I mentioned earlier, that needed to happen. And what makes me full of pride is that based on these conversations, it's clear the partnership that I'm going to announce is really, really needed. So I really do stand before you with great pride and enthusiasm to announce an important partnership that we hope and we know will create positive impact on the lives, particularly of our young generation. So the Denwin Geddes Foundation, which is the charitable arm of Red Stripe, together with the Rise Life Management Services, has embarked on a crucial mission to provide sensitization sessions to children at summer camps and in schools, focusing on the risks and consequences associated with underage drinking. So we are relaunching our movement program, which started many years ago, where we'd go into schools. We had a theater in education program, and we talked about the risks associated with minors consuming alcohol. And so we are investing in excess of 12 million Jamaican dollars over a period of 3 years. Yes, thank you. Please go ahead. Over a period of 3 years. So as I mentioned earlier, action, not a bag of mouth. So we've talked a lot today, and we do believe there's an important element of creating action, creating change. And through these sessions that we will have executed by Rise Life Management Services, we aim to build awareness among our young people about the risks and consequences associated with underage drinking. And we firmly believe at Red Stripe, and of course the foundation, that knowledge is power. And by arming our youth with accurate information and a comprehensive understanding of the potential harms of alcohol, we can empower them. We're also going to be working with guidance counselors, with teachers, and we heard it, Patrice mentioned it earlier, that the interventions cannot just happen in the homes. So we're doing the parents' movement, and we're also going to be doing the movement that creates these interventions where we can identify where these issues are, and we use an agency that has the expertise and the knowledge. It is a complex issue. We heard it today. And we are happy that as part of the Denwin Geddes Foundation, we are relaunching the movement, and we're now calling it Upon Another Level. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite Nadine from Rise Life just to say a few words, and symbolically we sign our memorandum of understanding in excess, I'll say it again, in excess of how much million? 12 million, thank you very much, over 3 years. All right, so please, Nadine.
Thank you so much, Diane. Good afternoon, everyone. I am beyond thrilled to be here this afternoon. This was such a meaningful and much needed conversation for us to have. And I actually had to lay with Jason as soon as he came off the stage, because I was shocked. You know, I was proud to hear all of what you've been doing as a retailer of spirits. And so I had to let him know that Rise really started out as Addiction Alert more than 34 years ago. And so dealing with issues such as problematic alcohol use is really a part of our DNA, and it's something that we've been doing in schools as well. And so this partnership that we are embarking on now with Red Stripe is really something that we are very proud of, because we know that arming our youngsters with information is what is really needed to enable them to make that wholesome decision not to introduce alcohol into their lives from too early, because we know the different ills associated with that. And then based on the conversations that we heard from the panelists today, we know how important it is to have that supportive community. So through the assistance from the D&G Foundation, we will be making sure that in the schools, the teachers, the guidance counselors, the peer counselors are equipped. They will know how to have these conversations at the classroom level so that students can recognize and be better prepared to deal with kind of peer pressure that they're really confronted with today as well. So thank you so much, Diane. We're looking forward. We're going to be rolling it out right across the island. It's not just isolated to Kingston. All Jamaican children have a right to be able to be exposed to this information. We want to make that happen, and we will make it happen over the next 3 years with Red Stripe, starting this summer. So thank you so much.
I know that we can do a much better job than that. Because we heard comments, thank you. We heard comments about funding and lack of funding, and that persons want to make change, but they don't have the right collaborators with the money, and private sector need to get, involved. And so now we have all of those things coming together. So we don't want to fenke, picky, diggy. Thank you. Thank you. So we have the signing of the memorandum, which I thought was just the perfect way to close out all the conversations that we have been having. And we understand that even though it is targeting schools and we're trying to get this information to younger children, we have a responsibility as adults to also transform ourselves in the process so that we can support these children as they try to make the right decisions, as they get the information. Congratulations to Red Stripe, of course, the Denver and Geddes Foundation, impacting lives, and of course, Red Stripe for being a great collaborator and partner. Ladies, another round of applause. So absolutely, on that note, I just would like to say thank you to the presenting partner, to PSOJ, to IARD, to our amazing panelists, to our keynote speaker, Dr. Kevin Goldburn, Director of Mental Health and Substance Abuse, the Ministry of Health and Wellness. To everyone, thank you very much. But I would like to hand over the official vote of thanks to Amoy Philpotts Brown, Brand Manager for Heineken 00, to do the honors. Please make her welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. As I was listening to the speakers, I wrote down here, wow. And the messages that were spread today was just so moving, right? I think this was just the tip of the iceberg, really, for us. A tip of the iceberg for the conversation, and there were so many key points. I wrote down a few things that really stood out. This was not the intention initially, but I was completely moved that I had to write down some points. Tips for us moving forward: to be open, to listen. We all need to do an internal self-check. Resist the urge to fix. Erase certain language from our vocabulary, like hush. Create a safe space for our children and others. Be present. Advocate for yourself. We need to have real conversations. And finally, there is no good health without good mental health. So I think it's really important that we take these learnings and become agents of change for responsibility, as well as to continue the conversation moving forward as well. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Amoy. I mean, she kept it simple, she kept it sweet, and she gave us the takeaways. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You came with us, you stuck with us, you stayed with us, you asked your questions, you participated. For those of you watching virtually, thank you for your participation. Because of the conversations and the engagement, look out for your prizes and your surprises. We want to also acknowledge the members of the media, because we're depending on you to take the positive conversations, the positive actions, and helping us to spread the awareness within our country. This has been Responsibility Now, Alcohol and Mental Health, making sense of the relationship. The third town hall. On behalf of Red Stripe, we just want to thank you for being a part of such a vital conversation that shouldn't just take place in the month of May, but rather every single month for every single year. Please be safe and remember to drink and live responsibly. It's been a pleasure serving you as host.